You're watching Public Comment every Thursdays at 8 a.m. The live stream. Detroit is different in Bridge Detroit. Local politics of Detroit. Oh, let's see. We're going to remove that. Welcome back to Public Comment. This is the Thursday, February 15th edition. And we have a special guest today, a special guest that when it comes to a lot of this work in, I would say, what would I say? Advocacy, but really being an attorney for the people on so many different fronts. But before we get to the guests, I definitely got to get to the other co-host, Mr. Malachi Barrett. How are you today?
I'm beautiful. How are you?
Oh, good, good. Yep. So now we got a guest together because before our special guest, Sherry, just things didn't line up. But we'll be doing more of this as we grow in Public Comment. But without any further ado, I'd like to introduce all of you all to Attorney Tonya Myers Phillips. Tonya, how are you?
I'm great. Good morning, Khary. Good morning, Malachi. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So we're going to bring in a whole lot to the stage as we have in today's special episode. We're talking a lot about community benefits, specifically for the future of health agreement that is on the table, as I'm going to give a lot of information and Malachi will, but more so the expert Tonya will speak to this. So, as we had in our year-end wrap-up, this deal of Future of Health, it is a deal with Henry Ford Hospital, the Detroit Pistons, and it's a lot of different mixed reviews about this. This is an article that Malachi put up. This was back in December, I believe. So, Malachi, can you speak a little bit to the article, and then from there, Tonya, step in and talk a little bit about community at this point. Malachi.
Yeah, so this is a good time to talk about this because we are at the point now where City Council is going to be weighing in on a couple of pretty key items when it comes to the Future of Health project, which is what they're calling this joint partnership between Michigan State, Henry Ford, and the Detroit Pistons to really this massive multi-pronged development, West Grand Boulevard, New Center area, where there's a couple of different components. It's a $3 billion project overall. Henry Ford, the bulk of that, about $2 billion, is going to expand their hospital. They're a nonprofit hospital. And then the Pistons and Henry Ford are doing some kind of land transfer deals so that the Pistons can build housing near its performance center that was built over on Cass, kind of on the east side of the highway there. And they are seeking upwards of $300 million in tax incentives to build luxury apartments. There's about 20% of those also will be affordable. And then there's some other things associated with that. MSU is getting on board for a research campus. There are going to be some new parking garages built. But the important thing is when projects of this size and projects that ask for a substantial amount of tax benefits come to the city, they have to go through what's called the community benefits process. Basically, there's a group of neighborhood representatives that get together and negotiate an agreement with the developers to create different projects and investments, more or less in exchange for the tax incentives and to mitigate any kind of negative impacts that come from the construction and the development in the area, because this is going to be a long project that's going to take several years of construction in the area. And that agreement was approved at the end of last year. And now the city council is in a position to approve the agreement. And there's probably going to be some back and forth and some changes made to it. Some things that might get strengthened. We'll obviously be talking about that with Tonya, as well as the pending approval for the tax abatements. The big one is a transformational brownfield plan, which is a state program. And then there's going to be some local tax breaks as well. And all of this is coming through, what is today, the 14th, Valentine's Day. All this will be before the city council committees on Thursday, and then will be pushed to the full council for a vote the following week. We don't know if that's going to be, immediately passed. Historically, these deals have taken a little bit more time. The council's, delays it a few weeks to kind of dig more into the details and hear more feedback from residents.
So with that, Tonya, I want to get some of your feedback and input into this. Just what was shared just from the article. What's happening? What should we know? And please share.
Yes. Well, as Malachi said, Detroiters should know that this is a critical decision coming before our Detroit City Council. It will be in the Planning and Economic Committee on Thursday. That's with 3 council members. Councilmember James Tate chairs that committee. You also have Member Johnson and Member Tate. So they will be making a critical decision on Thursday about whether to recommend this project for approval. They could pass it on without a recommendation for the entire council to review. We're anticipating that this will arrive before the entire council on Tuesday. So this is an opportunity for Detroiters to raise their voice and express your opinion on whether you feel like council should vote for this or not. Is this the best use of our taxpayer dollars? This is what this is about. It's not about whether the hospital is going to go forward or not. Listeners should know that the Henry Ford Hospital expansion is going to happen whether or not the tax incentive package is approved. The hospital expansion is not seeking tax incentives. Okay. So the way the proposal is marketed broadly is as a package deal, but if this proposal is not supported or the council doesn't vote on it, that doesn't mean we're not getting a new hospital. Okay. So that's important to know up front. What we need to express and weigh in on our opinion as residents, as taxpayers, is whether we believe the proposal in its current form is an equitable and fair exchange of our tax dollars. Myself, you, all Detroiters, we are going to be the ones that bear the tax burden for this project over the course of 35 years, up to 35 years. Now, the majority of the incentives are going to fund the housing component. The housing component is mostly market rate apartments, okay, luxury apartments. So the majority of the incentives, nearly 80% of the incentives are going towards that. They're not going towards the hospital. You know what I'm saying?
So I do have a question that you just kind of pointed on in reference to this, because you're speaking about some of the layers and the dynamics of this. And you also spoke about what the people should know. So let's just start there as far as like, look, this deal is moving forward. With deal moving forward, so more so not necessarily just this project, but when deals are at this state, for all your experience legally and also just being a person that advocates so much for the community, where is the advantage right now for people getting more involved? Where's the voice? What influence do citizens have at this point right now? I really would like for you to speak to that.
This is the point where citizens have the most leverage, because we have a strong mayor system of government, but it's not only mayor system of government, right? So we still have our basic checks and balances. And at this point, although the planning and development has taken the lead in structuring this deal, facilitating the neighborhood advisory council process, that's an executive branch kind of piece. So it's kind of queued up, so to speak, in this particular form. However, City Council has the power and authority to approve contracts and to approve this transformational brownfield plan. That comes under council's jurisdiction. City Council is a body arguably that's closest to the people. Okay, so we can go to these meetings. They are public meetings. You can come in person. You can write your city council members. You can leave comments with the clerk. You can call in or Zoom in, and you can let your council person know what you think about it and how you would like them to vote and what you would like them to do and how you would like them to advocate for you, your district council people, your at-large council people. This is the time, the best time for citizens to raise our voice and to exert our leverage. After it goes from council, let's assume if it is passed, and we don't want to assume that, everything is all sewn up, but let's say it does pass. Okay, the next step would go to the state, and that would
So
be
before
the
we
Michigan Strategic Fund, and that is in Lansing. It's a whole nother piece, but right now is the best time for citizens to raise their voice and exert their influence, because council members do listen and they have the ability to negotiate or demand more from this deal. So it's not a great deal the way it is. I
so,
certainly don't want anyone to go away with that impression. It's not a good deal, in my opinion, and in
but
working with
but
neighborhood residents over a number of years, it's not a lot there. But that doesn't mean it has to stay there. Council members can request more, they can demand better in order to secure their vote. So that is a powerful, powerful tool available to our council people who do have a responsibility per charter to listen to us and do us in our best
so
interest.
I wanna, and then it's like I hate
Mhm.
interjecting because you're giving good
Oh,
game.
yeah, it's
I
a
just
lot.
want to
Yeah.
cut it up a little bit more, and with
Mhm.
that cut up, definitely in public comment, speaking to more so the ways that citizens can influence everything happening, and that's also one of the advantages of having Malachi that works
Mhm.
that council beat for Bridge Detroit. Make sure you check out Bridge Detroit, subscribe to the notebook and what's happening with Bridge Detroit.
Mhm.
But Malachi, can you speak to some of what I just was asking Tonya? How have you seen citizens exert a level of influence at times when deals are right now, speaking right into what Tonya was speaking to?
Yeah, I think, we've seen a couple of these pretty large projects go through the community benefits process in the past. The Hudson site was one of them. The District Detroit plan was another. There's actually an ongoing process for what they're calling Hotel Water Square, which is it's a hotel on the Joe Louis site over by the Cobo Huntington Place. Generally what I feel like we have seen, there's really two big pieces to this. There's one, a kind of broad philosophical disagreement with the way that we use tax incentives to promote development, particularly in the downtown area, and how we, have these systems in the law where you can collect tax revenue from properties and then kind of divert that away from the general fund, from the general kind of public services, and put that directly back into the downtown or for downtown projects, or in a lot of cases for these kinds of deals to reimburse development costs for the developers. So we're really subsidizing a lot of the cost to build this stuff by foregoing tax revenue, by giving up revenue that would be going toward not only the city's budget, but all these other jurisdictions. People talk about schools and libraries a lot as being groups that have lost out on a lot of the revenue growth. And we've talked before about how this is kind of it's a trade-off, from the city's perspective. And we actually just wrote a story a couple days ago about Citizens Research Council report that kind of outlines the justification for these and why it's seen as necessary. But the idea is you give up tax revenue now, these projects get done that otherwise wouldn't, and therefore you benefit in the long run when the taxes increase on these properties that get finished. Of course, people also, part of this is they argue that the tax incentives are not necessary. That in the Pistons case, you got Tom Gores, who's a very wealthy man, and he could front the cost of this themselves. And Detroit's facing some challenges with the cost of construction, as well as just lower rents than similar major cities. I know the rent is not affordable for a lot of folks, which is another kind of interesting tension point here, where developers can't charge enough to make enough money that they think the investment is worth it, and yet even the discounted rates are more expensive than a lot of folks can afford. So that's kind of one piece of it, that people are just generally opposed to these large tax handouts, right? And then I think the other piece is the community benefits agreement and these deals that are created, which really are supposed to be a community-led process to achieve investments. And I think, as Tonya said, Tonya was at all these meetings, and I think maybe you can speak to this a little bit more about kind of your alignment with the NAC and your advocacy work on their behalf. But people feel like these deals don't actually amount to much. Historically, the last couple of projects that we've watched, There have been, and really in this one in particular, there were, hundreds of millions of dollars in requests that were made by the neighborhood group that was advocating for, people who live around this development. And what ended up getting passed was a lot, smaller. It was less substantial than what people were asking for. So I think there's, a lot of questions about how much leverage do residents actually have in this process to get things from developers in exchange for the tax breaks. I guess on that last piece in particular, Tonya, I'd be interested to hear what, you observed in watching the CBO meetings, and, it's several months of work, and how the NAC kind of struggled to get what they were asking for.
And before we hand it right back to you, Tonya, I wanted to add this. You do have 5 big requests that people can speak to. And thank you so much to speaking to that, Malachi, about breaking that down. You were definitely very instrumental in the community benefits ordinance, Tonya. And you've watched this process, and where it can be more empowered by people being more aware. It's 5 points about this future of health deal that you definitely delivered. I want to highlight both, but I'm going to give you the floor to speak directly to first where Malachi was saying, like, in this process where the community benefits agreement stood, and now where we're at with those 5 points.
Gotcha. Well, the way the ordinance is structured, a neighborhood advisory council is impaneled, but what people need to understand is that it's not a typical town square kind of model where everybody raises their hand and the people choose the folks to serve on the council. So out of the 9 neighborhood advisory council members, only 2 are elected by the community. The other three are appointed by certain city council members, and in this case, 5 were appointed by the Planning Development Department. One of the neighborhood elected members had to step down. So at the end of the day, there was only 1 representative that was voted in by the community, so to speak. So you have to kind of understand those dynamics as well in terms of really cutting through the chase of what's going on here. But nevertheless, the Neighborhood Advisory Council did put forth a robust list of recommendations, many that were endorsed by the community members. So they did put recommendations on the table, and I have to credit them for that. However, the developer came back, a day or 2 later and basically said, no, we're not entertaining any of this. And there wasn't any pushback after that point, which is unfortunate, but that's where we find ourselves. So I try to explain it this way: the community benefits ordinance, it is a tool. It is not a ceiling. It is one way that citizens can take advantage of the opportunity to raise their voice and express our opinions in government. But let us remember, the first thing in our Constitution, our state constitution, says that all political power belongs to the people, okay? So the community benefits ordinance is a tool for us to participate, but it is not a ceiling. Continuing to get involved, speak with your council members, and pressure them to exert their power and their responsibility that they have to make interests that are in the best interests of our community is still there. Now, speaking to the second point, what did community members want? I had the honor and privilege of working with the West Grand Boulevard Collaborative, and this organization has been working in the community for over 20 years, doing grassroots work in the shadow of Henry Ford Hospital, and has even worked with Henry Ford Hospital off and on through the years. So they have a lot of experience working with this institution, fighting against this institution, and also working directly with community members. We held 4 community engagement meetings ahead of the community benefits process, because this process, it is a little weighted, a little biased in terms of it's easier for developers to navigate, and it's largely controlled by the developers in the city in terms of how the meetings are conducted. There are ways to poke through that wall, but it is a challenge. I don't want to say it's not. So we did our engagement. Yes.
Tonya, one point, because I know Malachi wants to go, and I definitely,
Okay.
we get into that 20-minute point, so we going in.
I gotta hurry up.
It's cool. We run it. You know what I'm saying? We
I hear you.
getting in flow. But I know Malachi had a point, so this I know will be the last point. Everyone
Okay.
can look at those 5 points. This is what the community can't advocate for. There is a community meeting coming up Monday the 19th, about this, because this will be hot at the next council meeting on Tuesday the 20th. So we need to be mindful of that. But I did want to uplift that. So Malachi.
Yeah, less of a point. I just had a question for Tonya. I was wondering, from your conversations with neighborhood groups, what do you think is the biggest thing, or what are the things that really you're looking to see added to this agreement? I know City Council in the past has actually updated the community benefits agreements when it comes to their table. Strengthening it is kind of the intention there, and Council President has asked for an injection of funds into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. But I think even that doesn't really capture what a lot of people were looking for, earlier in this process. So for you, what is the opportunity here to get additional things added, and what's most important to get added to this deal?
Absolutely. I'm happy to share that. And these top 5 points, I just want to clarify, this helps people understand and be able to contextualize what's wrong with this deal, But when you ask the question, well, what's right? What can make this right? What can make it equitable? And there are at least 5 things that the council can require as a condition for their vote to get this thing on the right track. And at a minimum, we are requesting community members want a contribution, an annual contribution to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, $1.5 million, an annual contribution. So every year the developers are getting money and our taxpayers are subsidizing places that we can't even afford. There needs to be a $1.5 million contribution to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to provide housing units for the majority of Detroiters that we can afford. Number 2 is to reimburse all school and library tax captures. Any money that's taken from the schools and libraries must be reimbursed. 3 is a major contribution to a community investment fund that is controlled by community members. 4, our seniors are left out in this deal. Our elders, who we should honor, are simply not. They made a lot of requests on their own. I had the honor of working with over 30 seniors, and none of their issues were addressed. So we're saying to provide services for our seniors, including transportation, a little commuter shuttle to help them get to their medical appointments and shopping and things of that nature, which is not a heavy lift considering Henry Ford has a fleet of vehicles. And the last one is transferring Fairbanks Elementary School into a community land trust. Henry Ford owns that property, which is sat vacant for a number of years right now. And it's just simply a blight in the community, honestly. So that property, along with 300 other properties, they are benefiting from. But that particular school, people have fond memories of attending that school when they were younger. It's not in productive use right now. We want that property to be placed into a community land trust to be used for the benefit of community on a permanent basis. So those are 5 things, that are not, onerous in terms of cost when you're looking at 3 mega institutions. The university, Michigan State University, has a very significant endowment. Henry Ford Health System, already a taxpayer subsidized institution, and in the top 3 in terms of hospital care systems in the state. And my goodness, the Pistons, owned by Tom Gore, a billionaire who also made his money with a private equity firm. His job is to find money. Okay. So these are not, poor institutions that we're dealing with. These 5 items are the least, I believe the least they could do as good neighbors and partners that they say they want to be. These things are tangible, direct benefits that would come into our community that are a direct exchange for the value that we're giving up in tax dollars. And Khary, another time we have to come back and discuss how these deals are analyzed, because they only look at the DGC analysis, honestly, but there's not a cost benefit analysis in terms of what we lose another opportunity cost that we could lose out on by going forward with these deals. And you don't have that kind of holistic analysis in these deals. So that's a quick bit, but please come to our meeting on the 19th. We have the flyer there, and we'll spend more time breaking it down and really inform people how you can work with other Detroit neighbors who are fed up but fired up and want to demand better for this deal. And not only this deal, but to change our systems and policies to have community members and our interests be put first and foremost at the center of the analysis when these type of projects come up.
Definitely. Thank you. We definitely will welcome you back. We're staying on the pulse, and we went in overtime, but for good reason.
Dear.
Malachi,
Okay.
let people know how to connect with you.
Yeah, bridgedetroit.com. We've got free newsletters that go out every week. The City Council Notebook drops Wednesday morning. It gives you a rundown on what has happened at the City Council table. It's free. It's in your inbox. All you got to do is sign up, and it shows up. And you can also find us on socials, but bridgedetroit.com is your one-stop shop.
All right. And definitely, Tonya, let the people know how to get in contact with you.
At Sugar Law Center, you can go on Facebook. You can look at our website, sugarlaw.org, and also keep up with West Grand Boulevard Collaborative. Just look us up on Facebook, and there you go.
And thank you all for checking out what we're doing over here at Public Comment. We're getting more and more support. It's like building slowly but surely the blocks. We just want to keep people something short, something clean, connect you with something local. Next week, we'll definitely, I'm sure, be talking about this and so much more. Thanks for tuning in to Public Comment. Peace.